Hello everyone. In today's video, I want to cover Square because I've been essentially promising to do this video for so long. And if you have been checking out my portfolio, you'll know that I actually own Square stock. I own a small position in it. So if you are looking at the stock and looking at holy smokes, it's shot up to the moon and wondering, ooh, is there fear of missing out? Is it a buy right now? Should I be holding on to the stock for the long term? Well, I'm definitely going to cover some valuation models that I use to analyze Square stock and essentially help you realize, is this a good investment for you, so that you can decide, is it a buy right now? Is it a stock that you want to hold for the long term? So if you are looking at Square stock and just wondering, then you got to check out today's video. Hey everyone, if you haven't subscribed to my channel and you're watching this video, I cover stocks and real estate investing so that you can essentially live your best life. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe so you get the latest and greatest videos coming to you. Plus, it's free. So let's get back with the video. So what is Square all about? Now, most of us are probably familiar with Square as a hardware terminal system. So essentially, merchants like restaurants can use their system, pay for a fee, and bill their clients and bill their customers. You know, when you go to the restaurant, you use the Square terminal and then pay for the food. But what a lot of people don't recognize is that they have a huge ecosystem built around the merchants, where they make it highly integrated with the terminal system. So they allow merchants to borrow money, to pay their employees, to also get more capital, to use their Square card, and also bill out with invoices. So basically, it's an ecosystem that allows merchants to live in that entire system, so they don't have to find different types of software solutions. Other ecosystem that Square has is the Cash app. So United States, they don't have a really easy way to transfer money to their friends and family. It's only recently that this has exploded in immense opportunity for Square. See, in Canada, we use the Interact e-transfer. We can transfer to our friends and family from our bank, but in United States, it seems like they don't have a lot of solutions. So they have Venmo, and this is where Square is trying to compete with Venmo using the Cash app. So you can see that every single year, they've been acquiring more and more customers through their Cash app. And with this platform having so many users, they've been also diversifying their revenue sources. So they've introduced Bitcoin, they're looking at stocks, they're looking at keeping direct deposits in Square. So essentially, Square is becoming a bank, so that you essentially never have to leave the Square Cash app ecosystem. Now, when you look at gross profit for Square, you can see that the seller gross profit, which is the traditional merchants and the terminal system, is steadily growing year over year, but it's actually slowing down. And where the big growth potential is in their Cash app system. Look at it. It's gone from 195 million to 458 million, which is massive growth. Now, in terms of market opportunity, this gets really interesting. You can see with the sellers, it's like 100 billion opportunity, yet they've only been able to get in less than 3% of that $100 billion opportunity for sellers. Now, when it comes to its Cash app, they think it's a 60 billion plus business, yet they've only been able to get less than 2% of the market share with the Cash app. So what it shows is that there's an amazing amount of opportunity still left, and they're really at its infancy right now. Now, the Cash app ecosystem is really where I'm finding it so interesting with the Square company. I mean, look at this. It's a $9 trillion volume in the US alone, and they're just breaking it down that 4 trillion is sending, 2 trillion is spending, and 3 trillion is investing. I think really the investing is the huge moneymaker. Okay, so let's look at this, how they broke this $60 billion revenue potential. They're looking at $20 billion in terms of sending, basically sending money between friends and family, $41 billion in terms of spending, so through probably a cut in terms of point of sale, and then $2 billion when it comes to investing, which has a huge high profit margin. Now, this is where I think there's going to be years and years of opportunity. They are only focusing on the US in the medium term, but in the long term, they're also looking at new markets. I think Square, with their focus on the Cash app, is really trying to transform to become the banks. Because like with banks, you can do trading, you can deposit your money, you could transfer your money to your friends and family. And they're really trying to make it so easy for consumers to do that by first offering Cash App system where you could transfer money to your friends and family. But once you're on there, then they're like, hey, you could deposit money, you could trade stocks, you could also buy Bitcoin. And now that they've acquired Credit Karma, then they're going to allow you to check your credit score, and then they might be able to offer you loans, and then they're probably going to offer you, hey, you could do your taxes for free, or pay a small fee for doing your taxes. So it just essentially is they're trying to really gain as many people on this Cash App, because once you're on it, they're going to try to get you to stay on it for as long as possible. So what's the competitive edge of Square? I actually don't see any. I think they're just trying to take a piece of the pie of the big market share that's still available. We've got PayPal, we've got Shopify, all in the space, and they're all just trying to take up a percentage of the market share. And because the market share is so big, I feel like there's a lot of people to get in the system and still make a lot of money. And keep in mind that Square is just focusing their efforts in US, and they're planning to grow and expand all around the world. So there's ample amount of opportunity. The stock really a buy right now. So the few things I look at is the price per earnings, forward-looking price per earnings. Now, the analysts are saying that the expected 5-year growth is about 38%. So if I just did a run back of the envelope calculation, if the growth rate is 38, then I'm going to say the max price per earnings ratio that I'm going to pay for is 2 times the growth. That's the maximum I'll pay. And when I look at its forward price per earnings, it's at well over 2 times the growth rate. It's 175. So this kind of tells me, like, really, really early that stock price right now is actually expensive. Now, when we look at the PEG ratio, I can see that the 5-year expected PEG is like 4.25. Now, I'm always looking at around 1.2 or less than 1, because then it means it's like, okay, undervalued or potentially undervalued, but still a little bit high. It's 4.25. Also, the price per sales ratio is 13. Now, typically with tech stocks, we're looking at 4 to 7 times as the price per sales ratio. Now, I know Square has a ton of growth, but even at 13 seems a little bit pricey. But of course, I'm just looking at next year, and I really don't think it's giving enough justice, because this company is going to grow for a very, very long time. And so let's look at a little bit longer. Let's look at a 5-year growth time horizon. So the valuation method that I'm going to use is the price per sales ratio. Now, the reason why I'm using price per sales ratio multiple rather than price per earnings or discounted cash flow is, first, it's a high growth company. And high growth companies, you can't use discounted cash flow models. Secondly, with the price per earnings multiple, Square just recently became profitable, and it's really hard to figure out what that earnings ratio is compared to its revenue, because it really has no track record. So I'm going to use the price per sales ratio. So I'm going to use like a price per sales ratio that's very typical of tech stocks, which is between 4 to 6x, and starting with the revenue of 9.3 billion expected for 2020, we're going to use the analyst growth rate of 38%, and I'm going to assume the revenue grows 38% year over year up until 2025. So when I use a price per sales ratio of 4, you can see that the market cap is 185.6 billion. Now, the way I did that is I just took the growth, the revenue growth projected out 38% year over year. Then I multiplied this by a price per sales ratio of 4. Now, 4 is probably a little bit low, because this is probably for a tech company that's not like growing at accelerated rate. Now, I think that's not going to do it enough justice, because Square is just focusing the growth in US. And if it focuses the growth all around the world, then obviously there's an immense opportunity to scale their platform. So let's use a price per sales ratio of 5. So you can see that at a price per sales ratio of 5, by 2025, we're looking at a potential market cap of 232 billion. Now, if we go with a price per sales of 6, then we're looking at a market cap of 278 billion. Now, let's just assume that, okay, it's just growing at such a great rate. Let's give it a price per sales that's slightly higher than 6 than the average for tech stocks, and let's go with 7. Then you can see that market cap could potentially be 324 billion. So what does this all mean? Okay, well, the Square company has a market cap of around 95 billion. This is going to date today's video because obviously the market cap fluctuates because the stock price fluctuates all the time. So all I'm trying to get at is that it has a potential to potentially double, if not triple, in the next 5 years. So although the price is a little bit it's actually quite expensive right now, if you hold it for the long term, there's potential doubling, if not tripling, the stock price in the next 5 years. So what does this all mean? All this means is that if you're going to buy the stock, please hold it for the long term. I did a quick, easy peasy valuation model, but it was super simple. So I would say, for me personally, because I'm a cautious investor, I like to buy it with a margin of safety. So I'm going to wait for a bit of a dip and pullback. I will only buy small positions, dollar cost average throughout the year. But of course, if there's a bigger pullback with a reasonable price per earnings, no more than 2 times the growth rate, then I'll definitely be gobbling it up even more. Or if the PEG ratio is less than 1, then it will look more promising to me. Now, I want to leave you with one last thing. Now, the Square company has been closely related, the stock price, with Bitcoin. Mainly because Square owns a ton of Bitcoin, and that's really what exploded the growth in the last quarterly earnings. So because Bitcoin is worth so much money, if you are a true believer that Bitcoin can make a ton of money in the future, well, I would say a great way to play Square is thinking Square as closely related to Bitcoin. So for me, that's actually one of the real reasons I've been buying Square is because of the Bitcoin potential. Because I don't really want to buy Bitcoin. I don't want to put all my eggs just into Bitcoin. So having a company that owns Bitcoin yet has many other ways of making money is a way for me to get in the game with Bitcoin. So if you're an investor that's looking to get in Bitcoin and thinks there's a ton of opportunity in Bitcoin in the future, then you might want to play Square instead of owning Bitcoin. But the downside, obviously, to having using Square as a hedge for Bitcoin is that obviously if Bitcoin drops, then Square is probably going to just follow suit because they're closely related. So all to say is that this is a very volatile stock. If you're not into this type of volatility, then this stock is not for you. Anyways, I hope you found this video super helpful. Please hit that like button below and please comment, what do you think about the Square company? Why are you buying it? Are you buying it as a way to buy Bitcoin and diversify? Or you really truly believe in the Square company? Anyways, I'll see you in the next video.